Gimana kalau aku kasih tahu kamu ada seorang bilioner, sultan, triliuner, apapun sebutannya yang kamu mau, orang kaya. Dia co-founder PayPal, dia original investor di awal banget soal Facebook, dan sekarang udah di Palantir, di mana segala macam perusahaan-perusahaan gede di dunia. Dan ini orang penting, orang kaya, orang sultan, orang pintar lah. Dan dia keliling ke podcast dan bilang kalau antikristus akan segera datang. Ternyata dia juga yang bikin teknologinya. Gimana? Langsung kita dengar dulu cuplikannya di podcast ini.
There's also a very macroscopic question that you're interested in that, will pull on the religion thread a little bit here. You have been giving talks recently about the concept of the Antichrist, which is a Christian concept, an apocalyptic concept. What does that mean to you? What is the Antichrist?
How much time do we have?
We've got as much time as you have to talk about the Antichrist.
All right. Well, I could talk about it for a long time. I think there's always a question. How do we articulate, some of these existential risks, some of the challenges we have, and they're all framed in this sort of runaway dystopian science text. There's a risk of nuclear war. There's a risk of environmental disaster, maybe something specific like climate change, although there are lots of other ones we could come up with. There's a risk of, bioweapons. You have all the different sci-fi scenarios. Obviously, there are certain types of risks with AI. But I always think that if we're going to have this frame of talking about existential risks, perhaps we should also talk about the risk of another type of a bad singularity, which I would describe as the one world totalitarian state. Because I would say the political solution, the default political solution people have for all these existential risks is one world governance. What do you do about nuclear weapons? We have a United Nations with real teeth that controls them, and they're controlled by an international political order. And then something like this, is also what do we do about AI? And we need global compute governance. We need a one world government to control all the computers, log every single keystroke to make sure people don't program a dangerous AI. And I've been wondering whether that's sort of a going from the frying pan into the fire. And so the atheist philosophical framing is one world or none. Now, I have a lot of thoughts on this topic, but sort of one question is, and this was a plot hole in all these Antichrist books people wrote. How does the Antichrist take over the world? He gives these demonic, hypnotic speeches, and people just fall for it. And so it's this plot hole. It's this daemonium.
Right. It's implausible.
It's a very implausible plot hole.
Right.
But I think we have an answer to this plot hole. The way the Antichrist would take over the world is you talk about Armageddon nonstop. You talk about existential risk nonstop. And this is what you need to regulate.
It used to be that the reasonable fear of the Antichrist was a kind of wizard of technology. And now the reasonable fear is someone who promises to control technology, make it safe, and sort of usher in what, from your point of view, would be a kind of universal stagnation, right?
Well, it's more, that's more my description of how it would happen.
Right.
So I think people still have a fear of a 17th century Antichrist.
Yes.
We're still scared of Dr. Strangelove.
Right, but you're saying the real Antichrist would play on that fear and
Yes.
say, you must come with me to avoid Skynet, to avoid the Terminator, to avoid nuclear Armageddon.
Yes.
And I guess my view would be, looking at the world right now, that you would need a certain kind of novel technological progress to make that fear concrete, right? So I can buy that the world could turn to someone who promised peace and regulation if the world became convinced that AI was about to destroy everybody, right? But I think to get to that point, you need one of the accelerationist apocalyptic scenarios to start to play out, right? To get your peace and safety Antichrist, you need more technological progress. Like one of the key failures of totalitarianism in the 20th century was it had a problem of knowledge. It couldn't know what was going on all over in the world, right? So you need the AI or whatever else to be capable of helping the peace and safety totalitarian rule.
I mean, these things are so hard to score, but I think environmentalism's pretty powerful. You know, I don't know if it's absolutely powerful enough to create a one world totalitarian state, but man, it is.
I think it is not.
It is
in its current form.
It is. I want to say it's the only thing people still believe in Europe. Like, you know, they believe in the green thing more than Islamic Sharia law or more than in, you know, the Chinese communist totalitarian takeover. And the future is an idea of a future that looks different from the present. The only three on offer in Europe are green, Sharia, and, you know, the totalitarian communist state. And the green one is by far the strongest.
My very specific question for you, right, is that you're an investor in AI. You're deeply invested in Palantir, in military technology, in technologies of surveillance, in technologies of warfare, and so on, right? And it just seems to me that when you tell me a story about the Antichrist coming to power and using the fear of technological change to sort of impose order on the world, I feel like that Antichrist would maybe be using the tools that you were building, right? Like, wouldn't the Antichrist be like, great,
that's a good question.
You know, we're not going to have any more technological progress, but I really like what Palantir has done so far, right?
Yeah,
I mean, isn't that a concern? Wouldn't that be the irony of history would be that the man publicly worrying about the Antichrist accidentally hastens his or her arrival?
Is this so preposterous, what I've just told you, that the entire world has submitted for 50 years to peace and safetyism? This is 1 Thessalonians 5:3. The slogan of the Antichrist is peace and safety, and we've submitted to, the FDA regulates not just drugs in the U.S., but de facto in the whole world, because the rest of the world defers to the FDA. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission effectively regulates nuclear power plants all over the world. People, you can't design a modular nuclear reactor and just build it in Argentina. They won't trust the Argentinian regulators. They're going to defer to the U.S.
So in a sense, we're already living under a moderate rule of the Antichrist in that telling. Do you think God is in control of history?
This is again like I think that there's always room for human freedom and human choice. These things are, or at least where we are today, these things are, they're not absolutely predetermined one way or another.
Right. But God wouldn't leave us forever under the rule of a mild, moderate, stagnationist Antichrist, right? That can't be how the story ends, right?
Oke, ini podcast yang cukup berat sebenarnya. Mungkin banyak bahasa-bahasa yang kita nggak ngerti atau bagaimana. Pada intinya begini aja. Ini seorang bilioner ya, orang kaya, orang penting lah ya, investor dan macam-macam lah. Dia pergi ke podcast-podcast dan bilang bahwa hati-hati sama antikristus. Antikristus akan segera datang. Bukan cuma segera datang, kayak teknologi zaman sekarang yang berkembang itu tuh udah merujuk ke situ gitu loh. Dia mengingatkan itu. Dan pertanyaan yang menarik tadi adalah, lah lu kan investornya gitu. Kenapa lu nggak pernah kepikiran kalau alat-alat lu yang dibuat sama perusahaan-perusahaan lu ini nanti akan dipakai sama antikristus? Ya, dia bilang simpelnya sih kayak ya nggak terhindarkan, kalau bukan gua juga yang lain juga mungkin ya, tapi kita nggak tahu nih, maksudnya dia akan pakai apa, antikristus ini akan pakai apa. Dan satu hal yang aku akan kasih tahu ke kalian juga, bahwa antikristus itu nggak cuman satu orang. Wah, gimana tuh sesat nih? Enggak, bentar. Bukan cuma satu orang dalam arti begini, oke, ada antikristus, sosok antikristus yang muncul satu orang. Terus dia bilang, Gua adalah antikristus, sembah gua gitu. Ya, kita juga kan kayak krik, siapa sih gitu kan. Tapi aku percaya antikristus itu sudah punya armadanya sekarang. Sudah punya pasukannya sekarang. Jadi waktu dia mau munculkan diri, armadanya ini akan jadi apa ya? Yang wah ya ini dia, raja kita. Jadi bukan sendiri dia tuh, dia nggak bergerak sendiri, dia punya pasukan. Pasukannya mungkin bukan yang militer, bukan. Pasukannya itu agak agak susah sih disebut. Ya orang-orang yang berkuasa di dunia gitu. Top 10, top 50, top 100 yang ada di dunia ini itu cuma krocok-kroconya gitu. Ada top secret yang tidak dipublish. Ada lagi tuh. Itu pun masih krocok-kroconya. Dia sudah membentuk sedemikian rupa dunia ini, dia sudah masukin, wah entahlah ya bagaimana kalau diceritakan banyak nanti adanya malah menyebar ketakutan. Justru dengan kita bikin konten seperti ini, aku kasih tahu seperti ini, itu tuh jadi wake up call, jadi alarm buat kita untuk ayo kita kenal Tuhan kita bersandar hanya pada Yesus, nggak bisa sama yang lain. Dunia ini akan semakin rusak, dunia ini akan semakin kacau, pemerintahan antikristus akan segera datang. Ya kita berdoa aja, kita rapture duluan gitu atau bagaimana, tapi pada intinya adalah nggak usah fokus sama itunya sih sebenarnya, fokus sama Tuhan. Fokus sama Tuhan, dia ya jika Allah di pihak kita, siapa lawan kita? Antikristus lawan kita juga tidak level dibanding Tuhan. Jadi nggak usah takut sama itu. Persiapkan dirimu, berjaga-jagalah. Lebih baik takut sama hubunganmu dengan Tuhan yang hari-hari ini lagi kendor. Nah mungkin lebih penting takut sama itu tuh. Perbaiki sekarang. Itu aja untuk hari ini. Tuhan Yesus memberkati.